Peace, my family, and while that to all those coming out of the cocoon for the first time, welcome. This your girl, the butterfly. We about to take off. Let's fly. Just want to send you all that good healing energy your way. Peace, love, happiness, harmony, and abundance. Hope you guys are out there keeping your mind right. All right. Isn't that good? Now, mind. How y'all feeling? Hope you guys most definitely moving on up. You know what's up in your higher nature family, and most definitely cleansing. Because you know, we gotta cleanse. And if you don't know, now you know. Oh yeah, we gotta cleanse. That's right. The lower frequency energies. Alright? So, I came out here today to share. This is the Great Book of the Living, the Holy Tablets family. This right here will certainly help you on this good journey. If you want to check this out yourself and do a self-study, which is so much encouraged on this good journey within, yeah, you can check it out here on the channel. And, I can send you what you need, right? So you can get what you need so you can do your self-study. Our master teachers, scrolls and books, right? They're here just for you. Alright? So, again, I came out here today to read, right? And again, this will help you on this good journey, raise your consciousness levels up, and get the true story. So, let's get to it, alright? This is speaking on the journey of Nibiru, right? So let's get to it where I left off. It continues. Alright, let's read. This is speaking on Meldeck, right? If you don't know what I'm speaking on, it's going to be very important for you to go through the videos because I'm doing it in order with, how it's coming to me, right? So, again, this is for you to take it all in. And also, if you get it better, of course, by checking it out yourself, which you most definitely will, by actually doing your self-study, because it's something about when you begin to read things for yourself and it hits your soul and you begin to see certain things for you, and the Most High begins to speak to you. And that is what this is all about, getting into your own Godhood, right? So, let's get to it. Like I said, this is about Meldeck, right? Let's get to it. Meldeck had a population of billions, right? Living under the seas where Nibiru hit, right? Crashed into, okay? And in the sub-cities of Kauna, which was occupied by the Meldeckians, and the Veldor, which was occupied by the Troglodytes. Alright, Meldeck also had two moons. This was the planet of Melsmukai, or Melskokaya, or the Troglodytes, the dragons, and the Voltex. Okay, the Troglodytes average height is 3.5 to 4.5 feet, and their heads are extremely large. These were the slaves. However, the rulers, the Meldeckians, were very large in size, from 7 to 9 feet in height. Scales of multiple colors in which they shed like all other reptilians. They lay eggs for reproduction. The Troglodyans, or the Troglodytes, have two round eyes without pupils and no ears or protruding noses. Just two small holes in the nose area, and their mouths are split without lips, okay? The Troglodytes are hairless and they have no teeth. The Troglodytes' hands have 4 webbed fingers and no thumbs. The troglodytes live totally underwater in great seas and great cities with many great biologists. Because they lived underwater, if the planet sped up, it wouldn't affect them because gravity is different underwater. Meaning, gravity is the force that the Earth absorbs on an object. The force of gravity is relatively consistent all over the surface of the Earth except for in a few places like the equator and various slightly at different altitudes. Many people think, for instance, if a steel ball was dropped from a building, a cotton ball or a cotton ball, that the steel ball would fall a lot faster than the cotton ball, only lags slightly behind, right? So I'm going to repeat that one more time, right? Many people think that, for instance, if a steel ball was dropped from a building, a cotton ball, that the steel ball would fall a lot faster when the cotton ball only lags slightly behind. So the force was still constant. Water is denser than air, so objects move slower through water than air. The impact of the crash affected the beings on the surface of the planet Melday, and not underneath the water because the water is more dense and would slow down the object. So the impact would be less damaging and the shock of the impact would be less severe. However, it was daylight, so most of the beings came on land. All of the beings that could have negotiated were dead due to the trash. And the only beings that survived were the ones under the seas, which were the military and the warriors who were looking for a chance to fight anyway. Nibiru had no way of contacting the beings on the planet Melday to let them know that it was an accident, right, and not a deliberate attack. Telepathic communication was forbidden to prevent interference by other telepathic disagreeable beings. This was because the Meldakians were not a part of the Interplanetary Confederation. Their star fleet of warriors are a group of reptilians who bore the symbol of a reptile, who called themselves Noga, meaning warrior, and launched an attack. Thinking that the planet Meldag had been attacked, right? 4 fighter ships of Noga flight launched out, and it went off its orbit into the universe. Okay, attacked with the intentions of destroying Nibiru. These 4 ships equipped with high explosives created of plutonium Meldakings or Meldak's star fleet called Nelgai managed to escape Meldak as Nibiru passed by and followed in Nibiru's path. Nibiru put up its 4 magnetic force fields, which were created by Anu, the Most High, the Heavenly One, and given to Murdoch, and stabilized the 4 attacking ships. Nibiru created the magnetic cube called the Kaaba. This 4 great ships called Nelga flight moved on, as powerful winds that were trapped by Nibiru's force and unable to break loose, Meldak is now referred to as the Lost Planet, okay? The four fighter ships of Nelga fleet are called the North Wind, the South Wind, the East Wind, and the West Wind. These four fighter ships that originally surrounded Nibiru and appeared to launch an attack were now trapped. The great ship Nibiru activated its four magnetic force fields, encompassing these ships. All of their controls and equipment ceased to function, and a force field was put up, and they were trapped in the environment of Nibiru. Its new wobbly satellites were caught in Nibiru's gravitational pull and began to circle, making four whirlwinds. Nibiru immediately launched two ships to return to Elun to inform the elders of the incident. In the case of the need for assistance, Nibiru proceeded to move counterclockwise from the planets in the solar system. Nibiru pulled in towards Ansar, which means foremost of the heavens, now called Saturn, and its force field kissed off the planet in its gravitational pull, caused Nibiru to veer off its own orbit, and three satellites were added to Nibiru's force field, called Evil Wind, Whirlwind, and Matchless Wind. The orbit that Nibiru was originally on was a 25,920 years orbit called Ames. It shifted into a new orbit of 3,600 years called a Shar, and its orbit, right? Its orbit was caught in this solar system, always to make a return. Then Nibiru bounced off the planet Rum Titan, which now surrounds Ansar Saturn, and sped up its motion, creating the Saturn rings, right? Referred to as the necklace of Saturn. At this point, Pluto was released from its natural orbit around the sun, and it was pulled away into a direction of Mars and Venus. The path of Nibiru was now bent even more towards the center of the solar system, directly towards Tiamat, planet Earth, which means maiden of life, now called planet Earth. As it moved into your solar system, Nibiru caused problems amongst the other planets in the solar system by pulling their moons. Nibiru making one complete spin through the winds into space. The approach of Nibiru began to disrupt Tiamat, right? And this alarmed the beings of Tiamat that something was entering their atmosphere, causing volcanic eruptions and storms and hurricanes and floods. Tiamat was forced to launch 11 ships headed directly for this bright, glowing, or what appeared to be a planet entering its airspace. One moment. It was scrolling through pictures. One moment. Nibiru. Okay, it was Nibiru. This star fleet of 11 ships from Tiamat was led by Kingu, the great emissary, which was once ruled by the Meldekian deity Luna. The great ship Nibiru had 7 warships accompanying her, and they were launched at the 11 ships that were launched from Taman. Kingu was the name of the head defense force of Taman, and it later became the name of an imperfect planet, now called a moon. One of many moons, which was originally the companion Tamat, or the companion planet of Tamat, before the crash of the satellites of Nibiru. The 11 ships which were launched from Tamat at Nibiru were immediately detected by the force field of Nibiru and eliminated. One of the 4 satellites that came with Nibiru from Meldeck, called the North Wind, was lined directly for Tamat. The impact of the North Wind caused Tamat to split into 2 parts because of the high explosives that the ship contained, called plutonium. The hole which the North Wind bore in Tamat caused the upper half of Tamat to wobble in its orbit and setting large portions of its own fire, or of it on fire. Okay? The North Wind then came back around, shattering that half into pieces, making comets, of which Hala's comet is one, and asteroids. Comets coming from the Greek word komos, and long-haired star, or a comb, a hair, and the length of time a comet takes to complete its orbit is known as its period. So the comets have periods of less than 7 years, right? The comets are considered a part of the solar system. They never leave the limits of the same system. The comet's tail always points away from the sun's due to the pressure of the sunlight on the dust particles, and is usually 5,000 miles in length. Comets are often caught by a planet's gravitational pull, which causes them to shift from their course. Many of the pieces of the comet that caught on the fire formed the asteroid belt that is in the center of this solar system. The East Wind, another tremendous ship from Meldeck coming with Nibiru from Meldeck, swung around and put a hole straight through the upper half of the planet. The planet Tamat had turbulence and was unstable, while other planets nearby were still wobbling in their orbits. Tamat was pulled in many directions on one side by the 2 larger planets, Mars and also Kishore, Jupiter, foremost of the Farlands, on one side, and the 2 smaller planets, Venus, one who bore, and Mercury on its other side, all pulling and tugging. Nibiru's 7 ships broke off into 2 separate fleets, and the first 4 circling the planet Tamat, which is now called King, creating a net-like web, which was a magnetic field. One of the 3 warships from the second part of the fleet of 7 from Nibiru, located on the outskirts of the force fields, then launched a bright flame of light, much like ball lightning. The ball lightning was filled with brilliance, and it's pierced straight down, right? It pierced straight down. And these are pictures. Go on into Taman, completely neutralizing Taman's electric and magnetic force field. A portion of this massive ball of light, which was launched by one of the 3 warships from Nibiru, was called the West Wind, and also known as an evil wind, tore straight down as a ball of lightning into the center, exploded out a large hollow space in the center of Tamat. the west wind became a tremendous, or the west wind became a tremendous 600-mile diameter sun called Sol, and it was trapped in the place there with a sun screen to direct the heat waves through the North Pole away from the planet, creating the northern lights, right? Or what is called, the aurora borealis, which are solar flares or sun flares. This bowl of light, now in the center of Tama, was named Efsun, meaning one who exists from the beginning, and the place was named El Cerro. 3 satellites launched off of Nibiru, creating a tetrahedron, tetrahedron, 4-sided force field of energy, and at a 19.5 degrees angle under the new half of Tamat, with the hole through it, and a smaller sun, Sol, also called Epsu, was placed inside Tamat's center. Now, this newly formed planet Tamat, called Ki, the new Earth, was trapped into its orbit, where no planet had been orbiting before, protected by forces by the guidance of these ships, while she healed herself. This 600-mile diameter sun, called Epsu, traveled through the great hole called the Empress for a distance of 3,963 miles in the center of the half of the planet Tamat, where the west wind bore a hole, right through, called Ki, now called Earth, from the word Iridu. So it was indeed one of the satellites of Nibiru called Winds from Meldak that crashed into Tamat, and not Nibiru itself, okay? The Voltex, the troglodyte that mined this ship that crashed, survived, right, and thrived in the seas of this new planet called Ki, or Gaia, or Gaia, Gaia, once called Tamat, which much later became known as Earth, from Iridu, starting the restoration or reconstruction of life on Earth, including the evolutionary processes of planet and animal life. Now, the last of the winds, the south wind, crashed into Ki and created the Grand Canyon and gave birth to another small planet in its own orbit. The rotation around this newly formed planet Ki, which became the moon, right, that you see today, creating a lunar orbit called a Shikaku, or Shizuku, meaning celestial entity who protects Ki, or protects Earth, Ki, and called Kingu, which had became a chief among them, ruled by Luna, which Murdoch Nibiru made shrink as a dungeon, a mass of lifeless clay, thrown into outer space to wob up into its own orbit. Deprived its orbital momentum, Kingu was reduced to the status of a meat satellite, a moon, today known as Ceres, or Crease, or Creases, or Crease, which is today known as the largest of the minor planets and or asteroids. The upper half of the planet Tamat, which became oval-shaped, after the moon had broken away was now 7,926 miles in diameter and 24,896 miles in circumference, and it was set for replenishing or restoration on the part of the Great Star Fleet responsible for its damage. The newly formed planet Key was trapped into its orbit to protect it by forces sent for the guidance of 4 ships that were a part of the 11 from the fleet from Nibiru, of which 2 returned back into Elun to inform them of what had been happening. And now this new planet has 2 suns, one in its belly, 3,963 miles from its center, right in the center of the planet, another sun, inner sun, creating an inner tropical environment, right? And the other sun, Samus, was 93 million miles away from Key's surface. Now it goes on to say, Key was now trapped into its own orbit around the outer sun, Samus, to create a year of 365 days. Thus, a new time zone was created for this new planet. The south wind crashing into Tama also created a black dust cloud that cut off Earth from the sun. So now you have 2 sets of planets separated by this astral belt, creating the inner and outer planets. The inner planets were Mercury, Venus, Earth, Moon, Mars, and the outer planets were Jupiter, Saturn, Titan, Uranus, Neptune, and now Pluto, previously called Gaia, separated by this astral belt and the remains of the lost planet Meldak. Okay? So, 1/2 of the original Tiamat is an astral belt. Let me repeat that one more time. So, 1/2 of the original Tiamat Earth is an astral belt, and the other half is presently your planet called Key, Earth, planet we live on. Alright, so that right there was the end of that tablet. Man, oh man, that's exactly what happened, family. Alright, so if you are interested in wanting to know the facts of what happened in the journey of Nibiru and what happened to this planet and how it is that it has created itself today, how it became what it is today, check it out. This is just for you. Knowing the epic of creation is very important when you begin to know, the true history of renewing your history of this planet and the boundless universes. The Most High wanted you to know this information. So this is just for you, to raise your consciousness levels up, to get a full understanding and understanding. Alright? So, I'm going to leave it at that for now, family. Again, I want y'all all to know that you are loved beyond this world. Oh yes, and in it. Begin to spread that love, family, one to another. Be the peace that you seek. Release our master teacher, Dr. Malachi Shear L. Peace, shalom, Asher, divine love, family, and Wadu. And it's all love. And it's so good to have the right knowledge. Don't it feel good? Oh yeah. And if you want to do your self-study, family, check it out. It's on the channel. Alright? Peace.